My name is John Blatherwick. I've spent 50 years in the Canadian Forces in uniform from age 16 to age 66. I've served in the Canadian Air Force, the Royal Canadian Navy, the Canadian Army, and the last 6 years I was the Honorary Colonel for 12 Vancouver Field Ambulance. In my civilian job, because most of my time in the military was reserve, I was the Chief Medical Health Officer for the City of Vancouver. So I became interested in medals um, when I was a supply officer in the Air Force, and people asked me to go out and buy medals for them. And as I collected medals for other people, I got interested in the stories behind the medals. And I have done a lot of work in detailing the stories behind Canadian medals. A medal is the medal. It's a decoration that you get on you. The difference between a medal and a decoration is that officers got decorations and enlisted people got medals. That was a sort of a thing to make sure that officers were superior, and it's a British thing. The Canadians, though, actually changed that. And one of the interesting medals that are issued to Canadians is the Canadian Forces Decoration. And it's called a decoration because the King wanted it to be an important medal. So the Canadian Forces Decoration, though it is just a medal, is a decoration. So it's just what somebody designates it as. Originally, I found the medals interesting. They're pretty, the ribbons are pretty. You could tell where people had served in that. But I quickly started to meet people that had many of these medals, and I realized that the story behind the medal was the most important thing. And so that's when I started to work with a fellow named Hugh Halliday in Ottawa. And Hugh and I put together all of the honors and decorations to the Royal Canadian Air Force, the Royal Canadian Navy, and the Canadian Army. And we typed out thousands of citations from the fourth copy of the original citation sort of thing. And there were so many fascinating stories in there. I remember a military medal award winner that I talked to, and I asked him what he got it for, and he said it came with the rashes. He said, but my mention in dispatches here, that was real bravery. I climbed up on a Spitfire and I pulled a pilot out of a burning aircraft. He said, that I did something. At Blatherwick.net, I put all of my work on medals. And so I have my book, Canadian Orders, Decorations, and Medals, which describes all of the Canadian medals and why they're awarded and how many they're awarded, and examples and pictures of recipients of the medals. I have all the British medals awarded to Canadian listed on there. I have all the knighthoods, and I keep up to date the current awards to the Order of Canada, the Order of Military Merit, the Order of Merit of the Police Services. I have all the citations to the Meritorious Service decorations, which the government house in Ottawa stopped putting on their site, so you can find it on my site. So Blatherwick.net will get you a wealth of information about medals. I was a collector, but medals got too expensive. And what I found was that the story behind the medal was what was important, not the medal. And so I have a small collection, but basically I'm a collector of stories now, and I love talking to people about why they got their medals and their histories, as opposed to the medal itself. As long as the medals are preserved, I'm in favor of it. But I would much rather that people gave their medals to museums so that others could enjoy the medals and the story. And so I'm very often asked, what should I do with this medal? And I tell them, you can sell it, and if you sell it, it'll get a much better price. But you can also donate it to a medal, to a museum, and I will do a valuation of that medal, and you will get money back for that valuation, but you won't get as much as you will if you sell it. But I would prefer medals end up in museums so that they're preserved for everybody to see for a long time. The Victoria Cross is the British Victoria Cross, and it's recognized throughout the world as the highest gallantry medal that you can win. And 92 Canadians have received the British Victoria Cross. All of them have died. Canada created a Victoria Cross. They call it the Canadian Victoria Cross, and it has a different citation on the front of it than the British one. But it was done under duress. The people in Ottawa did not want this medal. The Legion wanted it, and finally they gave in and they created the medal. But what they created was a medal for the museums because it will never be issued. The people in Ottawa just don't want it. We fought for 10 years in a war in Afghanistan. New Zealanders fought with a few people. The Aussies fought with a few people. They both found Victoria Cross winners among their people. Canada couldn't find a single gallantry person that was worthy of this medal. General Hillier found a person that he believed was worthy of this medal. Others did too, but not the honours in Ottawa. So our Canadian Victoria Cross is a museum medal only, and it will never be issued. The Cross of Valour was designed in 1972 when the Canadian Bravery Decorations came into being as the #1 gallantry medal in Canada. A magnificent medal, and the initial winners of it were all very worthy, as were all the 20 recipients. However, we've done the same thing we did doing to the Victoria Cross. It's now a museum medal. The last time the medal was awarded was in November 2006. And only 5 have been awarded in the last 34 years, 1 in the last 22 years. We just don't seem to understand. You can't put a medal like that aside. That's saying that no Canadian has done anything very brave in the last 22 years. So we've again assigned a very useful medal, a very nice medal. We've assigned it to the trash can. I once asked the people in Ottawa who were the bravest of the people that received the Cross of Valour, and they all said to me it was the 3 Newfoundlanders who got the Cross of Valour when they went out in a rowboat to rescue people from a shipwreck. And they said the reason was that these 3 guys did not think they did anything brave. They said, we always do this. And in fact, one of them subsequently won another bravery medal, the Medal of Bravery, for doing something similar. So I've always considered those 3 men as perhaps the bravest of Canadians because they don't think what they did was brave. The other ones that I've always been impressed with are Master Corporal Keith Mitchell and Brian Pierce. Both of these men were SARTECs who jumped from a Hercules aircraft into a storm in the Atlantic to go to a ship to provide medical aid to a person on the boat. The weather was so bad the boat had not launched their rescue boat to pick these guys up out of the water, so they were on their own in the water for a while till they finally got picked up. Both of them have recently retired from the Canadian Forces, and both of them were outstanding service people. One was a chief warrant officer and the other became a master warrant officer. The Order of Merit is a Canadian decoration because it belongs to the sovereign, and the sovereign is the head of Canada. So we don't usually put it into our charts because it is not issued very often. In fact, only 5 Canadians have won the Order of Merit. This is the decoration that Prince Philip and then Prince Charles, now King Charles, usually wears as their neck piece. It is awarded for people who have rendered outstanding service to the British Commonwealth. And at any given time, there should be up to 2 Canadians can receive this. There have only been 5 total: William Lyon Mackenzie King, Lester Pearson, Dr. Wilder Penfield, and right now there are 2 Canadians who hold it. The Right Honourable Jean Chrétien, and late last year, Professor Margaret Macmillan, currently a professor of history at Oxford University, received the Order of Merit. It's a beautiful medal, and we're fortunate that a few Canadians have actually received this medal. The other unusual medal that Canadians have received is called the Royal Victorian Chain, and only 2 Canadians have ever received this. It again is a preserve of the sovereign, and the Right Honourable Vincent Massey and the Right Honourable Roland Michener were both received this honor. Massey received it because the Queen wanted him to receive, become a Knight of the Order of the Garter. And at that time, the Prime Minister, Diefenbaker, agreed to allow Massey to become a member of the Order of the Garter. But when she was about to announce it, Diefenbaker changed his mind, so they had to give him something, so they gave him the Royal Victorian Chain. Along the same lines, the Companion of Honor is limited to 65 members of the British Commonwealth at any given time. And 11 Canadians have won the Companion of Honor. These actually don't come directly from the sovereign. They're nominated by the British Prime Minister to the sovereign. But at the present time, we have 3 living Companions of Honor. General Jean de Chastelain, for his work in getting the peace settlement in Northern Ireland, and 2 very recent holders of the honor, Margaret Atwood, who, of course, is a writer and wrote The Handmaid's Diaries, and Margaret Macmillan. And so we have 3 Companions of Honor at the present time. Rare awards, but very notable ones. Now we'll get on to medals that we actually see around. The first being the Order of Canada, the highest non-valor honor in Canada. It was originally a 2-level honor, a companion with a magnificent badge that was worn around the neck, and the Medal of Service, which was a little silver thing that you wore on your breast. After a few years and after several people said, well, I don't want the Medal of Service. If you're not going to make me a companion, I don't want anything from you guys. They realized they had to make the Order of Canada a much broader honor. And so 3 levels were instituted, a companion level for the merit of the highest degrees, officer level for national work, and the member of the order for local work. The companion wears a magnificent, they call it a snowflake that was designed by my friend Bruce Beattie, and it has a red maple leaf in the center. The officer has a gold maple leaf in the center and is a neck decoration, and the member is a breast decoration with a silver maple leaf in the center. Magnificent badges, and I have known many people who hold the Order of Canada, and I don't know any of them that did not deserve it. Now, the thing about the Order of Canada is the only way you can get it is if you're nominated for it. And so any Canadian can nominate anybody for the Order of Canada. And I really encourage people to think about doing that. If you know somebody who's done outstanding work, then nominate them. It's really not difficult. You go online to the Governor General's website, and there's a form, and you fill it in, and you explain to the people in Ottawa what the award is, and then the person may or may not get it. They will not get it unless they're nominated. So even my son said to me recently, I don't understand why this person doesn't have the Order of Canada. And I said to him, because nobody's nominated him. Well, the next year he showed up and he did have the Order of Canada. So he finally got it. But that's the key point here. You can nominate people for the Order of Canada. And a lot of people don't get nominated because there isn't somebody out there to do it. It's a really beautiful award. The next order is the Order of Military Merit. Now, obviously, it is only open to the military population in Canada. It has 3 levels, and it was established in 1972 when the Order of Canada became a 3-level order as well. It has the commander level, which is basically flag and general officers, the officer level, which is basically major, lieutenant commander to colonel captain, and the member level, which is non-commissioned members and lieutenants and captains in the Air Force and Army, and Lieutenant Navy and sub-lieutenants in the Navy. They have a huge problem with this medal because they want it to be a midlife award. But inevitably, it's the old guys who get nominated because the old guys know other old guys who've got this award and they nominate them for it. So they've been battling with trying to find a way to get this medal issued as a midlife life. I think there's a simple solution to the problem that they have. By creating the commander, officer, and member level, they make it difficult then for a small group of people to fit into each of those categories. The simplest way is to say everybody who joins the Order of Military Member comes in as a member. So it doesn't matter whether you're a brigadier general or you're a second lieutenant or a chief warrant officer, you come in at the member level. That would help a lot. The number that are nominated each year is 0.1% of the total number of force members in that year. So it comes out to roughly about 3 to 5 commanders, about 20 to 23 officers, and about 60 to 70 members. Again, a relatively exclusive honor. It also used to be, when I was an active member of the reserves, that the reserves got very few medals. And somewhere along the line, somebody finally got that rectified and said, excuse me, you can't keep taking the medals that the reserves should be getting and giving them to the regular force guys. And so now reserve members now do get it. And HMCS Discovery has been fortunate to have a couple of recent members of the Order of Military Merit, and both are very, very well deserved. The next medal is the Order of Merit of the Police Services. And I don't know why they made it such a clumsy title. Why didn't they make it the Order of Police Merit? But they don't. It is the Order of Merit of the Police Services. And again, it's a 3-level medal, commander, officer, and member. And basically, the chiefs of police of the major police organizations in Canada, they often get the member level. A few of them make it up to commander, and a lot of the staff sergeants and sergeants throughout the police forces receive the member level. It's interesting because certain police departments get more medals than others, and one of them is the RCMP. And I suspect that's because they have people who know that you have to nominate people. So if you've got police members, friends, tell them to get somebody to nominate them, or tell them to nominate somebody that deserves this medal. Interestingly, well, the ribbon is different than the Order of Merit of the Order of Military Merit. The badge is exactly the same at each level. The next level of medal is the Royal Victorian Order. The Royal Victorian Order is the prerogative of the sovereign. So the sovereign gives it out at New Year's and at the King or Queen's birthday, the made-up birthday that they use, and it's given out for services to the sovereign. Most of the people in Canada who receive the Royal Victorian Order receive it for either security, for trips to Canada, organizing trips to Canada, or they belong to the protocol offices of the federal government or one of the provincial governments. Or in the case of the Duke of Edinburgh's award, several of the people who helped the Duke of Edinburgh while he was alive in Canada to run the Duke of Edinburgh Awards would receive this medal. My friend Rob Watt, who was the first Canadian Herald, is a lieutenant of the Royal Victorian Order. One of the oddities of the order being that the middle level is not called officer, it's called lieutenant of the Royal Victorian Order. There's also a Royal Victorian Medal, and I won't spend a lot of time on that because it's fall back to the old days when the British didn't allow officers to get decorations. So the Royal Victorian Medal went to non-commissioned members of the police, non-commissioned members of the armed forces. And again, in Canada, that has usually been members of the police detail for trips into Canada. The Order of St. John of Jerusalem in Canada is an old order and has been around for a long time, but it really came into much use in Canada in the 1970s when it was made a Canadian order, and the Governor General was the principal person in the Order of St. John, and the Queen the sovereign head. The Order of St. John has basically 4 levels in Canada: the Knight of the Order of St. John, which does not confer knighthood, the Commander of the Order of St. John, the Officer of the Order of St. John, and the Member of the Order of St. John. The Member of the Order of St. John used to be called a serving brother or a serving sister of the Order of St. John, but that has been changed to member. They used to give out 100 or 200, 300, 100 of these medals a year. But in 2007, this was changed, and the number issued was brought way down to the 40s and 50s that are now issued. It used to be that the Chief of the Defense Staff, the Commissioner of the RCMP, the spouses of the Lieutenant Governors of the provinces used to be made members or officers of the order. That is no longer the case. And so it's an order that at one time you saw a lot of, and a lot of military people, a lot of police people used to wear it, and today you don't see it very often because it has been restricted. The provincial orders in Canada started in 1991 when the top 4, Quebec, Ontario, Saskatchewan, and British Columbia, were all included in the Canadian Order of Precedence. Over the years, the rest of the provinces also created their orders, and the Order of Newfoundland and Labrador was the last one to be created. Then recently, in the last 10 years, the Order of the Northwest Territories, the Order of Nunavut, and not Nunavut, the Order of Nunavut, right, and the Order of Yukon have been included. So there are now 13 of these orders, and each of them issues medals approximately proportionate to the number of people that they have in their province. The only unusual medal in that group is l'Ordre de Quebec. The Ordre National de Quebec is a 3-level order with a companion, an officer, and a knight. And it's an unusual medal because it's a square medal, as opposed to the other decorations, which are usually the symbol of the province. And their breast medal is a circular medal. But it's also unusual in that it's given by the premier of the province, not the lieutenant governor. In the case of all the other medals, it's the lieutenant governor, and in the territories, it's the commissioner of the territory that issues the order. They are beautiful pieces of work. Again, a lot of them designed by my friend Bruce Beattie, and you'll now see a lot of people wearing them. I have to tell you a little story, though, about it. In December, there was a ceremony in British Columbia for the order, and 3 of my friends got it at that time. And they were telling me about the ceremony, and they had the medal placed around their neck and the pictures taken with it, and then they ran around behind. They took the medal off and took it out and gave it to the next person. And they don't have enough medals. So they still haven't got their Order of British Columbia yet, but they're being made. The military valor medals We've covered the Victoria Cross, but there was the Star of Military Valor and the Medal of Military Valor that were established. And as we were involved in the Afghan war, I kept wondering why these medals were not issued. And finally, after 4 years of war, 23 of them were announced. And I happened to be having lunch with Andrew Leslie, at that time Lieutenant General Andrew Leslie, who was the Chief of the Army. And I said to him, why have these things not been issued? And he said, well, I'll tell you the story behind it. He said, both Rick Hillier, at that time the Chief of Defense Staff, and I were angry that our nominations for these medals were not being processed. So we went down and we told these guys, I want a list on my desk now, or you guys are going to get, we're going to get you fired. And so they finally got them issued. So we can thank General Leslie and we can thank General Hillier for finally getting these released. There were 23 Star of Military Valor awarded during the Afghanistan War, and there have been 90 Medals of Military Valor awarded. One of them was last year, which probably would be something to do with Ukraine and our troops in the Ukraine, because it was issued without a citation and without a name for security reasons. So I'm glad to see that they're not putting the military valor medals on the shelf, but they're still prepared to issue them. I want to talk about the Canadian Forces Decoration. It's awarded for 12 years service. A lot of people always say, well, 12 years undetected crime, which is partly true, but Canadian 12 years service, and it's the medal that you'll see most often on a soldier these days. The Canadian Forces Decoration came about because the Army had its medals, the Air Force had its medals, the Navy had its medals, and so, but the officers of the regular force did not get a long service medal. A committee was established by the Governor General, and it was chaired by Major General Letson, who was his secretary at the time. And the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force would all explain why they wanted to keep the medal the same way that they already were. The Army thought 20 years was good enough for the officers' decoration, and they wanted an officers and a non-commissioned members separate medals and that. And after each meeting, Letson would summarize the discussion at the meeting, and he would summarize it thusly: 12 years was the chosen number. One medal for both officers and non-commissioned officers, and one medal for reserves and regular force, which was not what the group wanted at all, but that's what he summarized. And finally, the Governor General sent it to the King, and it was the King at that point that said, I want this to be a decoration and I want my head on it. And so it came back, and the Canadian Forces Decoration was created. And at that time, the Governor General said, I want to wear that medal. So he established that each Governor General would wear the Canadian Forces Decoration. So you will see the current Governor General and all the previous Governor Generals since 1951 all have worn the Canadian Forces Decoration. The Canadian Bravery Decorations were established at the same time the Order of Canada was made into a 3-level decoration. And there was the Cross of Valor, the Star of Courage, and the Medal of Bravery established. The Star of Courage, very nice medal. The Medal of Bravery, a nice medal. And both of those medals were actually fairly freely distributed. And suddenly we saw again somebody in Ottawa deciding we're issuing too many. And in fact, the Star of Courage started to dwindle, so that right now we see 1 or 2 or 3 a year of the Star of Courage. We see the Medal of Bravery dropping down, but we still see a significant number of Medal of Bravery. Now, when the Order of Canada was originally established, it had a Medal of Bravery uh, level. And it was never issued because they believed that this medal could not cover all forms of bravery. But in effect, what the committee has now done is by not issuing the Cross of Valor, by rarely issuing the Star of Courage, basically the Medal of Bravery becomes the de facto bravery medal for Canada. Uh, Now, that leads to a little dialogue of mine about bravery. You cannot be braver than brave. It's the old Yoda saying, do or do not, there is no try. Brave or be not brave, there is no not brave. There is nothing more than brave. So they're not wrong that one level can actually cover most of the bravery, but we've de facto eliminated our Cross of Valor and our Star of Courage, which I think is wrong. There are instances where you may want to use them, but that's what's going on. The Medal of Bravery is received by a lot of people in the police services, rightly so. They put themselves in the way. The Star of Courage was awarded to Sergeant at Arms Kevin Vicker when he stepped out into the open to shoot the person who had shot the sentry at the cenotaph. I thought that was a case where the Cross of Valor should have been awarded, but what he got was the Star of Courage, and in fact, 8 others got the Star of Courage with Vickers on that occasion. The last time a large number of them were given out. One of the interesting awards of the Medal of Valor was 186 were awarded to the dredgermen and barefaced miners for the rescue efforts at the Westray coal mine. And I talked to the people in Ottawa about that, and they said they had so many people nominated for having done brave things, they finally realized they couldn't decide who had been brave enough to get a medal and who hadn't. And they thought, well, rather than risk cheating somebody who put their life on the line in the Westray mine, we'll give it to them all. So the 185 medals given out at one time is the largest number ever done in Canada. The Meritorious Service Medals are an interesting group of medals. I'll talk about the military ones first. The Meritorious Service Cross for the military is awarded for the performance of a military deed or activity in an outstandingly professional manner according to a rare high standard that brings considerable benefit or great honor to the Canadian Forces. And 229 Canadian Force members have received the Meritorious Service Cross. It's often given to commanders in the field, given to commanders of the NATO fleet when they're Canadian, but it's also given for work by others of lower rank. The Meritorious Service Medal, military, is given for the performance of a military deed or activity in a highly professional manner according to a very high standard that brings benefit or honor to the Canadian Forces. And there have been 968 of those medals awarded, with 34 first bars and 2 second bars. So these often go to people who are in situations where they had to use their skills beyond. One of the recent ones of those was a fellow who acted as the attaché in Australia when he was a non-commissioned member because the colonel was no longer around, and he was the de facto attaché for Canada, and it was considered that he was acting considerably above his rank. Very nice medals. You'll see our current General Wayne Eyre has one. Many of the major generals, lieutenant generals, have a Meritorious Service Medal and a Meritorious Service Cross. There's one that has a Meritorious Service Cross and a Meritorious Service Medal and 2 bars. So it's quite a prominent medal. Now, the Meritorious Service Cross for the civilians is an activity that has been performed in an outstanding professional manner or with uncommonly high standards. The activity is often innovative, sets an example for others to follow, improves the quality of life of community, and brings considerable benefit or honor to Canadians. A civil award takes precedent over the military award. Now, one of the recent Meritorious Service Cross civil awards was two people who developed basically tampons for women in Africa that were reusable. Now, we go to the drugstore and our women can buy tampons and they can buy pads, but you don't have that luxury in places like Africa. And these people developed this and somebody fortunately nominated them. And I think this is a good example of somebody who benefits people at large. That citation has never been published by the Canadian government, and that frustrates the heck out of me. That's why I do my citations on it. People should know about things like this that Canadians are doing. The Meritorious Service Medal, civilian, is to recognize a deed or an activity that's been performed in a highly professional manner or according to a very high standard. Often innovative, this deed or activity sets an example for others to follow, improves the quality of life of community, and brings benefit or honor to Canada. And I've had the fortune to know many of these recipients. Christopher Gaze, the person who started Bard on the Beach. Not only did he start Bard on the Beach, but Christopher does an awful lot of charity work and a lot of good things. And so I love the Meritorious Service decorations. And again, people may not think that this person has done enough that they're going to get the Order of Canada, but think about what they've been doing and don't be afraid to nominate them for a Meritorious Service decoration. Elvis Stoico received the Meritorious Service Cross and the Meritorious Service Medal Civilian, and he's the only person that's ever done that. We used to give Olympic gold medal winners the Order of Canada, and we stopped doing that and we started to give the Meritorious Service decorations, and then we stopped giving the gold medal winners almost anything, which I think is a mistake. I think we should have kept it up. Colonel Chris Hadfield received the Meritorious Service Cross Military and the Meritorious Service Cross Civilian, and he's the only person who has done that. A recent medal called the Sovereign's Medal for Volunteers. I love that name. To recognize volunteers who have made a significant, sustained, unpaid contribution to their community in Canada or abroad. The medal replaced the Caring Canadian Awards, and the people who got the Caring Canadian Awards also received this medal. A lot of people in the Legion get this medal, and I don't take that away from them. That's not bad because a lot of them put in a lot of time with the Legion. The Legion members seem to nominate somebody, and this is a medal where you've got to nominate somebody. You've got to know people who have been doing volunteer work. If you're in hockey, you're in baseball, you're in anything with your kids, there's somebody out there coaching your kids. If it's you, then their wife should nominate them. It's not a difficult nomination. Again, the form is on the site. I nominated my daughter-in-law, and I got this nice phone from Ottawa saying, I think she deserves it, but we usually like them to have been a volunteer for 10 years. And I said, well, 10 years ago, she was pregnant and she was delivering twins. So she wasn't doing a lot of volunteerism. And the lady laughed and said, okay, I got it. And she got her Sovereign's Medal for Volunteerism. Please, folks, this is an important one. It is awarded generously. It is awarded, I think, to some wonderful people. I've been to several places where this medal has been awarded, and I've been blown away by the level of work that these people do. So it's not difficult. The Sovereign's Medal for Volunteerism, and it is a beautiful, beautiful medal. The sacrifice medal was created to recognize members of the Canadian Forces or members of Allied forces or Canadian civilians under the authority of the Canadian Forces who die as a result of military service, hostile action, or are wounded by hostile action. This honor replaces the wound stripe. Post-traumatic stress syndrome is considered for this medal. So again, we have the Purple Heart that most people know because all the war movies have people receiving the Purple Heart, and Canada did not have anything like that. And with so many soldiers being wounded, injured in Afghanistan, they finally decided to create the Sacrifice Medal. And it had a rocky start because, first of all, there was a limited to Afghanistan, and then people who had lost loved ones in Bosnia and the former Yugoslavia said, well, why not our kids? And so it was backdated as of 07, October 2001, and it was made available. And at the same time the Mother's Cross was expanded from the mother and or the wife of a person who was killed receiving the star to up to 3 people nominated by the individual who could receive what used to be called the Mother's Cross and is now called the Silver Cross. The Sacrifice Medal is a good medal, and it's usually awarded for people who put their lives on the line. Now, Canadians have also received commemorative medals, and ever since Queen Victoria had a Diamond Jubilee medal issued, and a few Canadians received it, we have had medals for coronations for each of the kings and queens throughout the time. In 1967, in honor of our centennial year, a centennial medal was issued. 25 years later, the Canada 125 medal was issued. And in more recent times, we have had the Golden Jubilee Medal of Queen Elizabeth II and the Diamond Jubilee of Queen Elizabeth II. And Canadians received these medals. And then we got a government that decided to not issue the Canada 150 medal. I don't know why. We had a government that then decided we're not going to issue a platinum Jubilee medal for Queen Elizabeth II. I don't understand why. Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta all issued platinum medal for the Golden Jubilee of Queen Elizabeth II. So if you're in one of those provinces, you could receive the medal. And it was included in the Canadian honor system. But if you're in British Columbia or Ontario or Quebec, you could not receive this medal. Okay, what's going on? We now know the date of King Charles' coronation. Is there going to be a coronation medal for King Charles? Well, they haven't announced one, and they normally would have announced it by now. And I think we're going to miss another opportunity to honor Canadians. We have more things to honor these people for than we've ever had. We gave the soldiers who went to Afghanistan, we gave them one lousy medal, one medal. We said, no, you can't wear the NATO medal. You can only wear the one medal that we're giving you. And not only that, we're going to take away your bar that you had to the medal when it was originally issued to you. You don't get that. What's wrong with us? Why are we so reluctant to allow people to have medals? This is a great chance, the Charles Coronation Medal, to honor all those nurses, all those doctors, all those drivers, all those clerks in the stores. We could honor a large number of people, and people love to receive. national medals. But we're not going to do it because we have a government that says we don't want to issue medals. I wrote to the British Columbia government and said, we have the 105th anniversary of British Columbia coming up. Are we going to issue a medal? I didn't get an answer from the politician I wrote to. I got an answer from a bureaucrat who didn't want to do any extra work. And so, no, we're not going to issue it. We're going to do other things. Well, it almost virtually passed. I asked large numbers of people, did you know this was the 150th year of the anniversary of British Columbia and Confederation? They had never heard of it. The reason they never heard of it was there was a few stories in the newspapers and that was it. But if there had been a medal issued, they would have known people who received the medal. They might have even received the medal themselves. But no, British Columbia didn't want to issue the medal. We have become stingy. Napoleon said, give me enough ribbon and I will conquer the known world. And he was right. People will go to extreme lengths to get themselves a medal. My friends who have the Order of Canada, with the Order of Canada has come the Golden Jubilee Medal and the Diamond Jubilee Medal. I got both medals because I was already a member of the Order of Canada. People put in their biographies that they have received the Order of Canada and that they have received the Diamond Jubilee and the Golden Jubilee Medal. They value those medals, even though they basically came with rations. Yeah, they might have gotten them anyways if they hadn't have had the Order of Canada, but they got them because they were members of the Order of Canada. They didn't have to worry that somebody would nominate them. So I go back to my basic premise. There are medals out there. You can nominate people for them. If they don't get a medal, you're one of the reasons they don't get a medal. People like medals. I can tell you that.